Right.
You're drastically zooming in and out. Was that just you stretching?
Yeah, that was me stretching. If I ever cover my eyes, I think it will start flickering mildly. So
Oh no, you're small and tiny. That's horrifying.
that's the intro. There you go.
Welcome to Bloodbald, the visualized podcast for listeners, people who watch screens, and people who will listen to us and occasionally watch the screen when they hear the noise, and then look away again when they hear this noise. Yeah, they do sound kind of similar. He is Paul is bad at stuff.
Hello. I don't know why I waved. I waved, but my arms don't work. Why do I keep doing that?
Good job, Paul. Hand tracking is definitely something we can choose not to invest in. And you can say now, perhaps, here's Christian von Carmian.
I mean, you said it yourself. There you go. There is Christian von Carmian. We are once again, I assume, unless you've changed the background, in your castle of terror and delight, I'm sure.
Great. I haven't been playing that much more Dark Eldar recently, but never mind.
There you go.
We collab together because Paul is one of the few people who can pronounce my surname. That's basically the whole reason.
Nice. So, Christian von Marmaduke, what are we doing today?
11th edition is coming up. We know it's coming in, 6 months maybe?
Yeah, it's like usually June-ish of the year,
yeah,
right?
and they'll start ramping up about March, giving us teasers and rules explainers.
Yep, new edition, hooray! Maybe.
Hooray, question mark. There are things that we think Games Workshop needs to fix for 11th edition.
Yes. We've got a list of topics we want to talk about. There's a couple where I think we'll agree. There's probably a few where we're probably going to disagree.
Ooh, drama.
So that'll be quite interesting. So this may, if we are at each other's throats, this may be the last bloodbald, because if Christian's at my throat, I'm dead. So...
Well, do we want to start with the mildly contentious one that I know you dislike already? The terrain. You have opinions about terrain.
Yes, terrain. I think terrain is fine.
Oh, he said it's fine. Oh,
yeah. Honestly, I think out of all the things for 11th edition, I think terrain is it can be improved, right? Like I think they did a good job of simplifying it somewhat, but it did go a bit too far. Like you've got a bunch of stuff, but it doesn't really do enough to really have a point apart from ruins, right? Because it's just that obscuring. Like being in cover is nice and easy to work out, which I like.
There's a crater, you're standing in a crater, you get the benefit of cover while you're in the crater.
Yeah, it's nice and easy, but being benefits of cover doesn't really do a whole lot.
Because you can still be shot.
It would be nice to be able to see more stuff, but again, this is one of those topics where I think the overall game versus games from a competitive standpoint are going to change. If you start putting trees and stuff in, trees are a bit more annoying to mass produce and standardize versus L-shaped ruins, which fit nicely in a box, and you can make 500 tables worth and take them to LGT without too much of a problem. Again, that's kind of a niche of the game, so it would be nice to see the terrain being more interesting and varied. If you're at the point where you're kind of doing crazy missions or crusade stuff or wild things, you can make up your own terrain rules. Like you can have like a Tesla coil that goes off every round and does something. Like you can start doing your own stuff with terrain. And I think if I were Games Workshop and focusing on 11th edition, I think terrain would be something I focus on, but it wouldn't be one of the main things I focus on.
I think the core rules could do with better examples of what a good table should look like. Because they have vague examples of here's the combat patrol terrain, and here's another way to lay out the combat patrol terrain, and one is fairer than the other one, and it doesn't really explain why. And then it has the picture of two armies across an open battlefield, and it's like, this is a narrative board. Why is it a narrative board? What's the difference? How do you do this? So if they were clear on how much terrain is needed for an average game in the core rules, not in the tournament support pack, so that non-tournament players can actually look at it. Otherwise, you're just going to end up, like you, playing tournament-style terrain in Crusade games.
Yeah, because one of the problems with 40k, and kind of similar games like this, is if you set up terrain wrong, you've wasted your time. Because maybe you have a really cool idea for a narrative thing, or you're two people trying to get into competitive, you want to learn how your armies work. If you set up terrain wrong, you're basically skewing it so badly that you're not really getting a good indication of what would work and what doesn't. So the tournament companion is just a nice, easy way to go, this is a fairly balanced, albeit boring and sterile board that we can play the game on. And when you're just like, I want to play a game, that's a nice way of doing it. I do agree with you that the core rules are very wishy-washy in terms of like, this is a good-looking board. Why? Like, it's hard to, and they only have one angle, so it's hard to see what each of those things are. Like, what are they counting as ruin? What are they counting as tree, barricade?
What is a wall and barricade? Because it looks like a lot of barricades and then, I don't know, some battlefield debris with one building in the middle. It doesn't make the clearest sense. Age of Sigmar in the new edition has gotten much better because its maps have like clear symbols for each layout. This is where you put a ruin. This is where you put a wood. This is where you have a place of power that everyone's just going to ignore. Yeah.
The main thing with 40k is obviously the balance between, unlike something like Age of Sigmar, the balance between shooting and melee. Because obviously, fantasy world is very much, we're going to get into your face and stab you with a sword. There may be a little bit of range, but it's not the most in the world. Versus 40k, where if you miss out a ruin and suddenly have a massive sight line, then that will tip the scales between Tau and World Eaters very, very quickly. Or if you add too much terrain, suddenly you can't hit anything and stuff gets in your face. So I think maybe Games Workshop just need to kind of bite the bullet and be like, look, this game is balanced on somewhat of a knife's edge. So if you want to play quickly, if you want to play something quickly, here's just some terrain layouts. If you want to learn how to use the terrain, here's some more information on that. I think that's kind of, they shouldn't really in the core rules be like, here's what terrain does, and then not really explain how to set it up. That should be like the key thing for the core rules. Should be like, this is how you make sure that the terrain will work so you're not wasting your time.
That'd be good. And we could have extra rules for, I think it's line of sight blocking. More things could be line of sight blocking, because almost no other kinds of terrain will appear on a functioning board. Trees could block line of sight if you're measuring more than 2 inches. Give an area that's in cover or not in cover, and a separate area that's going to be out of line of sight. That's the important thing. We could go back to the 2nd edition rules, and there's hidden. If you're wholly within cover as an action, you can become hidden, and then they can't be targeted outside of, like, it was initiative value, but outside of like 6 inches, then you're really well hidden, is the idea. Even if we had just area terrain. Doesn't matter if it's ruins or woods or a square of barricades with smoke in the middle, it is area terrain. And then there's the wall blocking. Some tournaments allow it, some don't, where you can't be or can be within an inch of the, just outside an inch of the wall, so a base won't perfectly fit through the wall.
Yeah, unless it's 25 mil base, in which case it can fit, but then,
But then you want to be 25.2 inches away. Yeah.
I don't know how to fix that, I'll be real. It's the only way I can think is that you just ban charging without line of sight. That's the only thing I can think, where you have to have line of sight on something to charge it. Because that's the only times you're really going through a wall, right?
Yeah, other than just moving through walls. So you could remove the infantry ability of moving through ruined walls, and then it is actually
unfortunately, I think what that does is funnels you, right? Because then you're funneling into... I guess the reason infantry can move through walls is, one, it's kind of the abstraction of... There's probably some like windows they can jump through.
Or they have blasting charges.
Or they have blasting charges, or something like that, right? But also, if you start to funnel everything down the non-ruin areas, then you're having problems. Unless you also change the terrain rules, so like trees and stuff are walkable through, and blah, 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 and then you might have something interesting there. I read through Trench Crusade a little while back. They have a fun rule, which I'm probably going to get wrong, but the gist of it is you can charge things out of line of sight, but you have to make a check. Because the idea is let's say you're running around a wall going, I know there's someone around there, I'm going to run around and stab them. But then you turn the corner and go, oh, that guy's a massive axe. I didn't realize that. Whoops. That's the kind of, what it's going for.
We used to have that in older 40k. If you charge someone in cover, they would fight before you, unless you had frag grenades.
Yeah. So there's ways around it, I think. Because it's one of those things where at this point Yeah, got it. At least in tournaments I go to, a lot of it is just going, the 1.1 inch away from the whatever, we'll do that. And everyone's like, yeah, that's fine. And we kind of just say that's a thing. And then as long as you're close enough, it's fine.
I have to check with opponents to be like, hey, have you heard of this rule? Do you do this rule here? Are you doing this rule? Are we not doing this rule? If I ever have to explain it to them, because it is something that's not written in the rules, but it is something you can technically do. If it needs explaining, we just don't do it.
Yeah, it's written in the rules, but not explicitly, right? Because the rules are you can fight through a wall.
Yeah,
engagement range is in an inch,
but you can't end a move within a wall.
The rules are there, but it's so disjointed, right?
You're never going to pick that up unless you have someone tournamenty explain it to you.
Yeah, unless
and then
you get told it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The main thing is, as long as like when people measure, they measure Because a lot of people times I would go, okay, I'm going through this wall. I measure from the wall and go, okay, I'm just going to measure my distance minus 1.1 because I know that's how far I am from the wall in terms of like playing by intent. The other thing I will make sure to do is tell people if I am against the wall, because my favorite unit, Centurions,
they're chunky boys.
If you're 2 ranks deep, you cannot get through a ruin. The back ones can't get through a ruin with 4 inches unless they are directly up against the wall.
Because it's a 3-inch usually area, isn't it? The L
you got to clear the area. It's very silly.
Yeah. I hope that there's terrain in the starter box for 11th edition. I've just done a video about like starter boxes. The kill team, that new box has MDF terrain. That would be something, but the plastic walls from 3rd edition are still used on so many gaming tables. The crashed shuttle from 4th edition. Sometimes I see the card ruins from 2nd edition. So if Games Workshop wants a certain type of terrain to be the norm, make it widespread by having it in the starter set.
Yep, definitely. I think I still have my 3rd edition like terrain somewhere.
Everyone does.
Trees as well. I think they're small, but they're so useful.
They liven up things, and you just have a circle of like card, throw some trees on it, and be there. Area terrain.
Yeah. The other thing with terrain that I'd like to see more is some verticality again.
We have plunging fire as a rule.
I think I have dealt with plunging fire exactly once.
I think also about exactly once. Or maybe twice, because you can start deployed on there, otherwise being 5 inches up, it's hard to get.
I've played some Shatterpoint where verticality is quite important. That's quite fun. But again, it really depends on what they're going to bring to the table.
You mean the high ground's important in a Star Wars game?
I know, right? Yeah, because there's loads of like jumping and stuff, which is really fun. Like jumping between ruins, but again, you'd have to design the kind of tournament terrain layout around that, which is difficult to kind of have. Basically, the reason plunging fire doesn't really work is because unless you're properly kind of enforcing the need to have the areas to do it, they're going to be very few and far between. So if you're going to have stuff like you can jump across gaps, or again, one thing from Trench Crusade was you can basically do an elbow drop. If you enter melee from a higher elevation, you can do a check and essentially jump on top of them, do like the, Link's down A from Smash Bros, just like stab them through the head.
I was thinking more like the trenches, you jump down with your bayonet first.
Yeah, exactly. Again, the problem with that is unless you have areas which are kind of built in to do that, they will get ignored. And therefore you're kind of wasting time on rules which aren't going to be used that much.
Mm-hmm. Or unless you write them, say, just ignore it, it won't come up. And suddenly it comes up loads of times and causes a problem until they remove it.
Yeah. I need to caveat for people in the comments before they get mad. I am a predominantly, tournament and competitive player, so I do value the idea of the fact... I know, right? I value the fact that terrain is easy to replicate for many tables and is easy to understand.
You're thinking about it from a tournament organizer point of view. Yeah.
Exactly, right. But I do see that it is fun to have these really intricate, interesting tables, but they are more difficult to make rules for without skewing stuff, right?
It's fun. You should have more interesting tables. Stop playing tournament rules only.
Speaking of only playing tournaments,
this is our next topic. The ways to play.
Yes.
In 8th and 9th edition, 40k had clearly defined in the main rulebook different ways to play. Pretty clearly defined. Like open play was do whatever you want. No rule is a fixed rule. Change it, have unbalanced forces, whatever you want. They had narrative play, which was Crusade in 9th edition, but otherwise was historical missions. Oh, you can refight the Battle of Khazad, something or other from the Eye of Terror campaign. And then they had match play, which was all equal points.
Yes.
And that's also then where you sort of got the tournaments, but they were an add-on to match play. It wasn't the best defined, but it was all there. But they could tag something in like a White Dwarf as, this is open play, and we know it is fun and not truly balanced, and narrative is fine for lore refights, and then Crusade. Match play has your equal points.
Yes.
That is remembering that 8th and 9th edition had a much looser power system for the points, instead of points for the narrative stuff. And now we just use points for everything. I mean, still, with narrative stuff, people used the points pretty often.
Yeah.
Because they were interested. We'll do points later. Got to do points later.
I have opinions on points, which I think may be not the same as yours, but we'll get to that.
Okay. So I think 11th edition needs to define, again, the different ways to play. I want a table. I want a table that shows what Games Workshop expects you to rules, which rule sets are there, where the balance patch is used, where legends are used, because it's good to have them in the faction pack, even if it makes the Space Marine 1 absolutely massive to download.
Yes.
It needs to have a line between what is tournament play and equal points match play, which they sometimes call organized play. They sometimes call it balanced play or casual match play. And these are not real terms that are defined anywhere.
No. I think the easiest way to do this, and I hope this is the way they do it, is the core rules are your open play in terms of like, here's the rules, but you get to the end and it goes, okay, but you know, if you want to do this, if you want to use a White Dwarf thing, you use these rules, take from them or don't take from them. And then you have the what they're now calling chapter approved, right? That's the mission deck, you know, the mission cards and all that stuff. That becomes if you're playing chapter approved, oops, sorry, not the mic there. If you're playing chapter approved, then you're playing with the cards and you use the cards system, like the little instructions that come with there.
Yep, there
that
is
thing
extra
uses
rules
all
there.
of the balanced data slates. That's the where you don't use legends. But if you're not using chapter approved, you can do what you want. If you want to use then those cards, that's fine. But I guess chapter approved, I've twisted myself out my own argument. Because if you in the open play, you still might want to use the cards because they have like the twist deck and stuff. So I've twisted myself out my own argument.
And the asymmetric missions.
Yeah.
So I think we need 3 ways to play a more... Well, okay. We've got Combat Patrol, that's separate. We've got boarding actions, that's separate.
Combat Patrol.
Different army
Combat
construction
Crusade,
stuff
I think, are fine. I think they're over there. I'd like to see them change Crusade to be... Not Crusade. Combat Patrol.
Yep.
A little bit. But that's kind of a separate thing anyway. But Combat Patrol, more like Spearhead, would be quite interesting. But that's a whole other thing. The cards with the missions and stuff are good. Yeah, so you want those cards, but then you probably want an add-on for those, which is then the tournament companion, right?
Yeah, so I was thinking if you had a generic play, then something, let's call it Total War. That's your normal games. They have legends. They have the mission deck. That's where you could do Crusade as well. That's where your White Dwarf Bunker missions would go. And then separately, tournaments, which strip a load of rules out and say all of this is disallowed. And then you can do your own tournament thing separately.
So I think the tournament companion, that's where you go, no legends, have to use the most updated things.
Yep.
And then if you're not using tournament, but the default is legends allowed, White Dwarf, whatever. Because I've read some of the White Dwarf stuff. I don't see people talk about it. Some of the White Dwarf missions are really fun. I don't know if you saw the biker one.
It's an interesting way of doing it for sure. But
it's just like, there's a lot of silly stuff there. I think they need to do... I don't know. I feel like that stuff, I don't know why it's in White Dwarf. I'll be honest. That's the kind of stuff... I mean, put it in White Dwarf so you got a physical copy. That's the kind of stuff they should be putting on the website.
Yeah, they do have a separate section on the Warhammer community website for downloads from White Dwarf. It just doesn't have anything in it. It's got the how to set up the bunker mission
bingo card,
and that's it.
Bunker challenge journal, bunker mission sequence, and hobby hangout. I don't think people realize how much silly stuff is in there. And you get like one a month basically, and it'd be fun to have those be more talked about.
I do occasionally do videos about them because sometimes Games Workshop's like, we're going to test out this idea, and then you'll find that 3 months later it's appearing in like a mission deck. This crazy idea. And others are just not great and wildly unbalanced. But hey, it's fun as a one-off because it's a tactical challenge. It's like how you used to get chess things. It's like you need to get checkmate in 2 moves. And the first move has to be putting your opponent into check. So it's a bit like that. Can you manage this particular scenario?
Slight tangent. Recently, I've been getting into Kaizo Mario ROM hacks, which are ridiculously hard and unfair. And I'm like, could you do like a Kaizo 40K mission where you play against someone and it's a very difficult tactical mission which is completable but has like a bunch of like trolls and jokes in there? I don't think it is possible, but it's the kind of thing where I think where people talk about 40K in terms of like, oh, everything's just tournament, not legends allowed. No one's going to come to your house and stop you if you want to play a very silly game.
Well, your friend might be someone who comes to your house and doesn't want to play the silly game with exploding bullets and things, but you could.
Like, and again, there's nothing stopping you doing that. And I think the one of the big things is that when I think people probably complain about, oh, it's all about competitive, it's all about, this and that, they haven't found the right community yet, because there's going to be people out there.
Yeah, or they haven't even asked the people in that community, hey, do you want to play a White Dwarf mission? Do you want to try a Crusade mission just for the mission? not to do a crusade, just try the mission.
And I think once you find that group of people, then you're going to be in a better position. I think the reason there's so many issues, and I think people have problems with, and the ways to play, I think comes from pickup games where you're just like, I want to play a game. Oh, here's a guy who my community have never met before. We're going to play a game.
We need a default set of rules.
And they come together and they don't have the same idea of what that game means.
Yeah.
And so that's where the tension comes in. But if you're in a community where you go, oh, this community does this kind of game, that's the kind of game I like. Therefore, if I play anyone from this community, I kind of know what I'm getting into.
Yeah. I did recently play someone who I didn't know was new. And they said, okay, we want set up for tournament layout. We're doing this tournament mission from the tournament mission pack. And I assumed that they were kind of competitive. So I accidentally crushed them. And got like 100 points to 26. And it was a Nurgle player. So I then was sick for 2 days.
Yeah. To be fair, they didn't lose as badly as I did in one of my games. I lost 100 to 25 before.
Oh, well, there you go. One whole point difference.
If that guy's out there listening, well done. You still did better than Paula's Ballot stuff.
You scored the primary mission 1 time. Well done.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. Like, teaching new players is already quite difficult. I was teaching a friend of mine who comes from Middle Earth strategy, battle-y, gamerly. One of the rules that I completely didn't really think about telling him was the game lasts 5 rounds. Because I forgot in Middle Earth, the game lasts X rounds and will end at a certain predefined time.
Yeah, it's like 13, 15 rounds, and if someone runs away enough.
Yeah, like it could be like when the first armor gets broken or someone does X amount of things. So he was like, oh, so how do you like get enough points? It's like, well, the game lasts 5 rounds. He goes, oh, the game lasts 5 rounds. Like, yeah. He went, oh, I went, yeah, I probably should have told you that. Yeah, you can actually plan for all 5 rounds. The game is already quite complicated, and it would be nice. Combat Patrol needs to be a
better game system in itself. Its whole problem with Combat Patrol,
game.
It started out as the start collecting boxes from like 8th edition-ish.
Yeah.
And then they stamped on what if this was an army for a game system? And then they've done Combat Patrols, but they haven't really tried to balance them much.
Yeah. Spearhead does this properly because basically the Age of Sigmar rulebook goes, here are the rules, here are the advanced rules. When you're playing Spearhead, get rid of the advanced rules, you don't need them.
Yeah, it has
the basic stuff.
I think Horus Heresy does this as well, 3rd edition Horus Heresy. They divide up the core and the expanded rules. That might be enough.
Yeah, I think do that. I think Combat Patrol is a good way of doing it. With the Combat Patrols, it then means that because they've now got this kind of baseline in, it's nice when they do new additions, they probably will, but they don't have to get rid of the old Combat Patrols because it's still part of the game. Like Spearheads, for example, they have a new Seraphon Spearhead, but they haven't got rid of the old one.
Yeah,
because they're 2 separate like armies within the Spearhead game system. Whilst with Combat Patrol, they were just like starter box that they tacked a game onto, and then they kind of had to flitter about with it. So
yeah, well, you can still use the older like 8th edition Combat Patrol box set or 9th edition Combat Patrol box. Yeah, not get started. But like, there's 2 Combat Patrol sets you can use for like Gene Stealer Cult and about 12 for Space Marines.
But they still sell both Seraphon ones.
Oh, right, I see.
That's the thing is because they're like with Drukhari one, right? They got rid of the old Drukhari one.
Yeah.
Probably because they realized that it was the most amazing box they've ever done. They were like, we can't.
Same it's making all the
it's the hot fuzz. You're making the other boxes look bad, old Drukhari Combat Patrol, where if you just bought 6 of them, you would have an army and barely any wastage. Sure, you don't need 12 boats, but I mean, you would have 60 Cavalites usable. You'd have 30 Incubi usable. You'd have 6 Archons. I mean, lots of Archons, lots of parts for
you can change them into other characters.
Yeah, and then you've got 12 boats, which you don't need 12 boats, but I mean 12 boats are cool. You can make 6 Raiders, 3 Ravagers, and turn the other 3 into a Tantalus.
Yeah. Yeah, it does a lot. It did a lot.
Defining ways to play 40k, I think it's just a case of kind of cleaning up the core rules and making it kind of like a,
I think there's a lot of ways they could clean up the core rules just generally.
Yeah, I think it's just a case of like because when people go online, let's say someone because I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, I've got into Warhammer because of my videos. So let's say they want to learn how to play 40k and they go, oh, I want to play like Paul's Ballot stuff, like the way he plays, but they don't realize it's kind of the tournament way. Like that needs to be I'm not saying in the rules, it needs to say, if you're from Paul's Ballot stuff, you need to go buy this thing.
Whereas if you play Christian's way, you want to do more open play and crusade stuff and occasionally tournaments.
Yeah, exactly. So like
clarity would be best.
A
And
bit more
same with
clarity
terrain.
especially with the cards, I think. Like
Lacking
the cards
clarity.
do a good job of going, here's like how you do missions that aren't just kill everything. But then within that,
Yeah.
you've got like the asymmetric and the twists
Very good
and all that,
missions,
which don't
fun stuff.
appear in places. Yeah.
But yeah, people don't play with them as much as they should, and they're really good.
They are.
They could do a lot of cleaning up with the rules. Like some of the stuff that they have in the core rules. Reactive moves. That's a term we use. That is not a Games Workshop term. Having a move where you get out of like a transport to disembark is a kind of move, but it's not a normal move, and you're not remaining stationary. Or when you arrive from reserves, that is... They need like a set-up move term. We have surge moves, I think, finally, as a term, but these were all loosely described. Yeah, fans use the terms, and Games Workshop then had long descriptions of the sort of moves, and then there was debate over, is a Combi Lieutenant's move counting as a surge move or not? Because it does basically the same things as a surge move, but it's not called surge, it's not a blood surge or a brood surge keyword move.
There's also a reactive move, because it happens when you're within 9. And then,
but that's not defined as a Games Workshop term.
Exactly, it's all nonsense, right? Yeah. A lot
the
of
rules
keyword stuff, and I
doesn't
think a
need
lot
to
of
be as
rules
long.
clean up.
Yeah, but they should do. I don't think there's any reason to have separate keywords for monsters and vehicles. Why some stratagems and abilities work against vehicles, but not against monsters. And I don't like the term while leading a unit. I think it should be while part of an attached unit, because that clears up the idea that if characters are on their own, are they leading themselves? Like, is Celestine leading her 2 Gemini? No, but if the term was while part of an attached unit, and same as who is leading when there are 2 characters in a unit. If it said while part of an attached unit, that would work better. We usually get between like the 8th and 9th edition, there was quite a bit of rules clarifying went on in the core rules, not in all of the whole, we have this rules commentary 500-page document for you to look things up. We could use health instead of wounds. I know that's something you like from Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, my problem with Age of Sigmar is they still count up, despite the fact they called it health. So you count up the amount of health you've lost.
Right, okay. So does that matter for like some bracketing things?
So the way it works is like in Age of Sigmar it goes, if you've taken 13 damage, then you're bracketed, rather than you are...
If you have 4 health left.
If you have 4 health, yeah. But I mean, that's a semantic thing. Yeah, wounds, it's fairly... Yeah.
Yeah, 40k at least does, if you have 1 to 4 wounds remaining, then you're bracketed.
Yeah, but it's one of those like Age of Sigmar versus 40k things, which I think is not too bad. But I think there's a lot of stuff where...
They probably wouldn't change it either, because it would mean if we're going to keep the rules...
I think they did a good job with keywords.
Yes, generally yes.
Stuff like... everyone else knows what, sustained hits, lethal hits, crit hits, all that stuff, very nice. Grenades keyword, smoke keyword.
Yep.
Very nice. More of that. Because you have... Every single detachment has a reactive move or an uppy downy. Make that a keyword.
Is this like teleport strike? We just call it deep strike. Thanks, mate.
For your uppy downy, it's just like this has... I don't know what you'd call it. Uppy downy is, let's say it's a keyword. This thing gains uppy downy. It's there's a lot of things like that where I think because they repeat the same things over and over, and then over the edition they start to write it differently because they've realized a loophole, but then they don't retroactively do it.
Yeah.
And there's stuff like the Vectorer as well, right? Where
if you're within 12 inches, your command points cost 1 extra. Your stratagems cost 1 more command point.
I think they globally now call that Lord of Deceit, which is fine.
Yeah, that's based off the Calidus Assassin. Like, they have sticky objectives they call objective secured from the intercessors.
I feel like some of the stratagems that were repeated quite a few times and put them as a generic one and just say, if you have the uppy downy keyword, you can use this uppy downy thing. And then maybe detachments just go, if you use this detachment, your Phobos keywords get uppy downy keyword. And then you've kind of solved that without having to make the same stratagem over and over and over again. Cleans things up a bit.
Yeah, that could be okay. If 11th edition is compatible with 10th edition, then changing phrases and words without releasing a massive and probably incorrect errata, it's going to be difficult. But for future detachments, they could do it.
I feel like 11th edition is going to be huge amounts of change, because obviously it was a massive change from 9th to 10th, and I think 10th is a very, very good baseline for them to work from, that I don't even think they should change too much overall, just to
I think I agree. I know there's people saying they're getting burnt out with 10th edition, but they tend to be people who play tournaments only, no, no terrain changes. They don't do Crusade. They don't do White Dwarf missions. And it can be a bit much if you're doing that all of the time.
Yeah, I think there's been a level in 10th edition where the amount of tournaments that have been available, the amount of people have played,
the range of
and the amount of
tournaments
content about it has exploded, even more so than 9th. Like, all of the tournaments I've been to have just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. Like London GT, ridiculous amount. And again, people coming up to me saying, "Oh, this is my first tournament." Like, I think the amount of people playing 40K has exploded, and I can see that eventually that's going to be overwhelming if you're kind of really diving into it. But I think, to 10th edition's credit, I think the reason people are playing it so much, or at least in my opinion, why I play it so much, is because it is a lot more digestible once you get into it, because there's not so many weird esoteric things. Like in 9th, you had so many stratagems, right? Many stratagems, so many enhancements that it just got overwhelming. Now that things have been kind of reduced down, there's still a lot of like jank, but you can very easily understand your army way quicker.
It's one detachment with 6 stratagems.
Yeah, you can learn those 6 stratagems pretty quick. And then, because those 6 stratagems, for better or worse, are similar to a lot of other people's armies and other people's attachments, you can understand, oh, you have an uppy downy as well, I have an uppy downy, I know what that means.
You get lethal hits on the charge if you do this and that, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to get into, and I think where people get burnt out is, going too hard too fast. And if this is their like first edition, maybe again, to GW's credit, this is why they have a 3-year cycle, because maybe it's getting to the point where people are looking for something new.
Something weird.
And so 11th edition would be good for that.
It could do something weird. Or maybe we should change the game length and game size of 40k. Because if you're playing the same thing for like 4 hours, and then the next time you're going to do the same basic game for 4 hours, and there's very little change, like rapid change between it, it can burn you out much faster. I think 2,000 points should not be the standard size of game. If you're playing Custodes or Super Elite Space Marines, it's reasonable for the reasonable amount of models and the amount of thinking you have to do and on the table. Not so much for Horde armies. If you were anywhere near 100 models, I think it's too much. My problem with this is I've not played a real Horde army for a long time. My biggest, like, in terms of number of models army was like at the start of 10th with Drukari, and I haven't really picked them up. And because I play Centurions, my actual model count is fairly low, even for a Space Marine army. It's in the 40s rather than being in the 50s or 60s. Yeah.
This one is a bit of a struggle because 10th edition, again, tournament play, you get about 3 hours per game, and I think that's a decent length.
It's pretty intense to then not be doing much talking with your opponent, other than strictly about the game.
Yeah.
Whereas regular games be 4 hours.
Like, being able to do report, but again, that's because I'm a goofball. Like, if I was trying to play seriously, I'm sure it'd be a lot weirder, but because I'm doing my goofball shtick, then I can have fun losing. But I feel like it is a very intimidating thing for new players and players who don't play it often. And I think perhaps there is some credence to maybe having just a tournament companion be 2,000, and then have your standard game size be smaller.
Yeah,
maybe
playing a losing game, not at a tournament where you've come strictly to do the tournament, but playing a losing game generally for 2 more hours after you know you've lost is kind of painful, and it kills the fun of the game. And it's not where you can think, okay, we can restart, because there's not enough time to play a full game in the 3 or 4 hours you have.
Yeah. As someone who has lost very quickly, I've generally found that if I've been destroyed that fast, my game where I lost like 100 to 25.
Yep.
I think that game lasted an hour or an hour and a half. And then in the end, I was just trying to hunt the lion. And then we just had a nice chat at the end. And he basically, he was a very good player who won the event in the end. He basically was like talking about, all this stuff and trying to help and that kind of thing. I think it's one of those ones where the best games of 40k, and you probably agree with this, are the ones which are extremely close, which actually do last like the whole time. And it comes down to like the last choice, where it's like one dice roll, one thing will be the make or break because you've been so close.
Yeah.
In fact, the last event I went to, both my losses were the final hour losses, where like 1 or 2 decisions gone a different way, I would have won. And then the game I won didn't last that long because I kind of smashed it.
Well done. Yay.
Yeah.
Paul smashed it for once.
Paul smashed it for once, I know, right? Keeping up that basically, 40% win rate constantly.
Good.
But yeah, there's definitely the ones where you're kind of slowly bleeding out, where there is no way back, but you haven't been smashed enough that it's the ones that give you the false hope. It's like, oh, I could do something, but realistically, no.
Yeah.
Those are the tricky ones. My issue with potentially changing the game length and the game size. One, I think game length really depends on the rules anyway. Like, if the game was more complicated, the game length would have to be longer, regardless of game size.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think the rules should be that much simpler. I know things that, like, the Rogaldon gun profiles could be 4 guns rather than 12.
Yeah.
But
maybe the Rogaldon could just be deleted from the game entirely.
Oh, of course. I mean, it's already got that. The bottom has already been removed from the Rogaldon.
Yeah, it's slowly being deconstructed.
Working our way up,
physically. So remove one line from the datasheet every edition until it's nothing. There you go.
Right. Yeah. Points per unit could be increased. That is one way of getting up to like the normal 2,000 points, but it feels a lot smaller than it has been.
Yeah.
Make 1,500 points.
My issue, I think, is if you wanted 11th to be a kind of extension on 10th and kind of perfecting 10th a little bit, is if you change the game size default, that's a massive shift. And that requires a massive rethink and a massive balance shift, which I don't think is worth doing right now.
Okay. I get by pretty well on 1,000, 1,500, 1,250, 2,000 points, any of the ranges.
Yeah, I think all of those points work anyway, but if you think about, let's say they change the points to 1,000, and this is kind of the extreme example. Let's say the default is now 1,000.
Good, I'm with you.
Then you go, okay, but what happens when you want to play knights?
You get one big knight.
I brought 2 big knights to a 1,000-point game, and you didn't have room in your army to bring any anti-tank. Unless you're willing to change a very large amount of stuff in terms of the way vehicles work to make it fit, or change the points in a way that means you can bring 1 big knight or something, or make very rigid force organization charts, which I don't like, then you're skewing I think you're changing too much. But I think there is something there about I think rather than change the default, they should have more ways of balancing those sizes. We can see it in the cards, right? Where if you're playing 1,000 points, you have a max of 2 units. Your battle line can advance and action.
Yes, that's right.
Some of the cards go, oh, if you're playing in 1,000 points, this card is horrible for you. Get rid of it.
Yep.
More stuff like that, I think, to support smaller game types, I would be all for. But I don't think they should change the default.
Okay. I mean, just looking at my armies of 60 Battle Sisters, thousands of Genestealer cultists, a lot of Chaos cultists. Part of what killed Warhammer Fantasy originally was needing 100+ models for a basic army. And I think it's not reasonable for most hobbyists and any dedicated player to have multiple armies if it's that big.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there is
It's not like I realize that I have a new faction every new edition.
It's a real tricky one, isn't it? Because I think the problem is if you start reducing the point sizes and making things better for horde armies, you start to make it worse for elite armies and stuff with lots of tanks, where
there's ways of doing hordes by recycling units. We have that with reinforcement stratagems and the whole Genestealer cult army rule. It gets the theme across without having to paint as many models.
Yeah, I feel like it's an interesting one, right? I feel like game length and game size, I think, like we said at the top, is going to be very dependent on the army you play. I think if you spoke to a Knights player, they'd be like, oh, hell no. But if you spoke to, like you say, a GC Cults player or someone who decides to bring 1 million, guardsmen, they'll go, oh, if we could bring less, that'd be great. I think it's one of those ones where, because it is so tricky between all the armies, again, I think for 11th edition, it's fine to keep it the same. I think maybe this is something they could look at for 12th. If they were to try and change the direction, because there has been some weird stuff with horde armies, right, where the amount of models kind of exploded a little bit in some places without much power. But yeah, it's a weird one, right?
Yeah, there's other ways to kind of move the game forward faster. One of the things I really don't like is Feel No Pain, where you have random damage or multiple damage, and then you have to slowly roll each Feel No Pain roll.
Yeah. Oh god, yes. Anytime I have to fire Centurion missiles at something with a Feel No Pain, because it's D3 shots.
Yep.
And then it's D3 damage.
Yep.
And then they have a Feel No Pain on top of that. So you have to
Oh, you rolled
so
one. Okay, I rolled one,
everyone
feel
you
no
didn't
pain.
save, I
Or
have
the
to
next
roll a
one's
die,
got
and then you have to roll
yeah.
that many feel no pains. And if you did save any, that it's like, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah, so they could change the feel no pain rule to be something like -1 to be wounded, or +1 wound. You could eventually, over the edition, change profiles. Like, okay, this unit has +1 toughness. They've done it with Death Guard. They got rid of the Death Guard Marines feel no pain, and now they're just toughness 6. And that feels about right. It's almost as annoying, but you don't have to slowly roll all of the things. They could reduce the number of rerolls. They sort of vaguely suggested that would happen at the start of the edition, but I think they meant no more aura rerolls. Because 9th edition, you had like reroll all wound rolls of 1 from a lieutenant.
Yeah, that I think makes sense where it's like, yeah, because you could have one lieutenant essentially causing rerolls on several units. Now it just does it on 1. Yeah, rerolls is an interesting one, and stuff like Feel No Pains. That is definitely stuff I think. Feel No Pains are just pain, ironically.
I feel
because I think they're a reaction to the fact that invulnerable saves and armor saves aren't as like armor saves are basically like if anything looks at you funny, you're probably not going to have that much armor. That's where the invulnerable save is there to go. There's a cap on how much AP is going to matter against you.
Yeah.
And then because AP was so prevalent, they went, okay, we need something else for those even tankier things. And I think maybe because they have increased the scale and the variance in stuff like toughness, you could just make stuff tougher instead of making them have Feel No Pains.
More
or
wounds,
give them -1
more
to
toughness. I think Feel No Pain feels like a 9th edition thing, especially when in 9th edition there was lots of things that just say, I'm going to ignore your invulnerable save. It's like, wow, why do I even have this extra armor save?
Yeah. That was silly.
Yeah. So we could get rid of a lot of rerolls. I don't know how you feel about the whole, well, if I have this many rerolls, it will average out. Oh, no, wait, it will always be either average or better than average, depending on the number of rerolls you have. It takes away a lot of the drama. Oh, you failed your 2+ save. Oh, wait, you used a command point and you rerolled it, and obviously you passed it. My guardsman did not
if you're
bring
rerolling
down
a
your
1 with a
type.
command point reroll, it's going to roll into a 1 anyway.
That is a strict rule of the universe, but...
Yeah, it is a weird one, right? Because my army, basically every single weapon is twin-linked. So I am basically rerolling every single wound roll. Which is nice. It's nice to have that backup. It's one of those ones where I think it has to be an all or nothing. And I think the problem is if you get rid of them all... It's one of those ones where I kind of want to try it. Like, basically play a game and have no rerolls allowed whatsoever. Like, nothing. If a rule says you reroll something, you don't. And just see how less lethal the game is.
Might I suggest Horus Heresy for that? Because a lot of like old 40k didn't have these rerolls. There was also far fewer attacks as well.
Yeah. So like Middle-earth as well is very similar, where there's very few attacks with no rerolls.
Good.
But
Middle-earth's good.
The problem with that
based off 2nd edition 40k.
The problem with that is you have, it becomes very skewed, right? Like the fact that rerolls actually allow variance to be reduced allows more tactical thought because you can be more sure of what you're doing is the right thing.
More
the problem
sure,
with something like
absolutely
Middle-earth
sure
in the
it's
few games
work.
I've played is if you're always killing something on the 5+, the person who just has the better dice in the right moment will always win, which isn't as tactical. You're kind of that's kind of like the casino thing. It's the
the drama, the drama of the dice game.
It's drama of the dice game, but also it can get annoying when the dice aren't on your side, which they often aren't for me. Like I say that
the
they're probably
Custodes
also
continually
fine,
pass their saves.
But yeah, it's the Custodes. Like if a Custodes can roll 4+, they win. If they can't, they lose. Basically, because they have everything has a 4 of it run. If you shoot a Custodes, can they roll a 4+? If the answer is no, you win. And I feel like having rerolls is a good way of kind of going, I know this thing will do decently well into this. There is a possibility that I could whiff, but unless my dice betray me, like that is the correct tactical thing, rather than kind of going constant Hail Marys. But it's a tricky one, right? I don't know. I do think it does need to be less lethal. But the one thing I don't like is when people say, oh, the game is so lethal, if I stand out in the open, I get shot. It's like, yes. If you stand out in the open and a las cannon shoots you, you should die. Like, that's why the terrain is so important. I think a lot of those things, like the way you change how often things get damaged, always goes hand in hand with terrain, which is why terrain is so finicky and can't be too complicated, because that terrain really does, especially in a game like 40k, terrain is the thing that can make or break a lot of these rules. And that is why it's such a weird thing to think about. If you see what I mean?
Yeah, I think I see what you mean. My mind has gone somewhere slightly different. I'm now thinking about ways to reduce the number of points. And I don't know if you're pondering what I'm pondering, but what if we brought back points per weapon? That's a way of increasing unit points.
This is going to be my controversial opinion.
Ooh.
I don't think they should bring that back.
Ooh.
I think it's fine the way it is. And the reason I say this is there's a few things where people have gone, oh, they should bring back points value per weapon. They should bring back the psychic phase. I would rather
I'm okay without
the game move forward and not rely on things they've done in the past. I could take, they should take inspiration from those things, but I think they should not be beholden to just going, oh, it didn't work, let's just go back to the old thing. I think they are doing some smart stuff in terms of like points values on weapons.
Doing the wrong thing.
I'd like to see them do more stuff like they did with the Drukhari Scourges. Because originally a Scourge, you go, okay, in 9th edition you have your Scourges, and then there is a points amount to put Dark Lancers on them, so you'd pay it. Or you just wouldn't take them. So in 10th they went, okay, all points are free, you just take what you want. So you go, okay, here's some Scourges. 5 Scourges are way more expensive than 10 because you can only have 4 Dark Lancers. And then they went...
Proportionally more expensive, yes.
Proportionally more, yeah. And then they went, well, now you can have Scourges with just Shard Carbines for cheap, or pay the premium and have them with heavy weapons. And then you have 2 units with very distinct, different use cases. And that is more interesting than just going, you can either have Scourges, but terrible, or pay the premium and have Scourges, but good. Now you have Scourges that do one thing, which are cheap and potentially fill in a gap that Scourges would have done originally. And then you have the Scourges that do the damage. And I'd like to see more of that. Because I was thinking about this with Centurions, right?
Right.
Like, let's say, because Centurions come as default with your heavy bolters and hurricane bolters.
Yep.
Whatever price they are, points-wise, if you then said, okay, there's a base price per model, and then there's a price for the las cannon, the missiles, whatever the price for the missiles and the las cannon is basically going to be the cost of the Centurion. Because no one's taking Devastated Centurions for bolters. I'm sorry, it ain't happening. You would have to spend the points. But I like the idea, instead of just going back to the old system because people talk about it, I like the idea of them going, okay, when you're paying that price for the weapons, you're doing it for a certain use case. What is the use case of the unit if you didn't take the weapons? Let's make that its own thing.
With its own special rule.
And then you can decide, do I want the thing for cheap to have this use case, or do I want to spend the premium to have the other use case?
And having a special rule makes it easier for newer players to see what the unit is meant to do on the table, in theory.
Exactly. Yeah, so for example, with Scourges, again, a new player might go, oh, Scourges do this. They can have a bunch of weapons, but they have a thing where they can, like, move, shoot, move. Where if they then go, oh, I'm going to do it with Shard Carbines, and someone goes, well, you could have just done that with a way better weapon. When this, they can go, okay, the Shard Carbine ones do this thing, and then the heavy weapons ones do that thing. Tau Crisis Suits is another one, right? Where basically before it was like, you basically pay for the weapons that is always, like, the best in slot. Again, I don't play Tau, I've never played against Tau, so Tau players... don't yell at me. I'm just kind of saying how I feel about it. I mean, yell at me if you want. It's on Christian's channel. I'm not going to read it. But essentially now you have the different crisis suits that have different, they have the different weapons, but they have different use cases that fit those weapons. I think that is a lot more interesting than just going back to points value on weapons.
I thought points value on weapons is simpler, especially when you've got things like las pistols versus plasma pistols, bolt pistols versus plasma pistols. I'm okay with a 9th edition version, the very end of 9th edition, where a few specific weapons had an extra point cost. Heavy bolter, heavy flamer, doesn't matter, it's free. But if you want a multi-melter, that's 10 more points. Bolt pistol compared to plasma pistol is not a meaningful choice, as we say in games design. Out of 2,000 people, 14% of the cool people will stick to the lore thematic Holy Trinity and have a bolt pistol on their Palatine. But the plasma pistol is better as long as it has the option of firing safely.
Like for pistols, for example, like for pistols on like a sergeant or something, it's like, oh, you can have a plasma pistol or a, heavy bolt pistol or whatever. The thing is that for me, those pistols very rarely matter. So
well, yeah, I know.
It's kind of just adds extra stuff you have to read through. I don't know. I feel like they can do stuff with that small amount of points, because that is one of the problems with not having points on weapons, is you have lists that are
1,985 points.
and that's
75 points, yeah.
literally the worst thing in the world and makes the game unplayable. I think maybe having like enhancements
for units,
like
in 9th
again, going back
edition?
to like, Cabalites and then Trueborn Cabalites, having those kind of upgrades would be good. So rather than it being like per model, you basically go, you pay extra to get this updated like extra rule. Or
a better stat.
The other thing I was thinking about is having it so it's still free, but you don't get all of it. Because there's some places where it's like, you can add this thing and add this thing. Why isn't that just default? Because there's no downside to that.
Like a hunter-killer missile. Like a pintle-mounted bolter, yeah.
Yeah, but in some places, like I think in Leagues of Votan, you have stuff. It's like you can either have like the teleporty thing or the invulnerable thing.
Yeah. Different crests.
More choices like that would be really good, I think, where you basically have, a unit can do 2 different things, but you can only really choose one of them. That way, you're still having that choice within a unit without having to worry about like points. And maybe those things could cost points. Like, okay, your default is you have, this thing, but if you spend some points, your units can have this better thing. Yeah, it's one of those ones where I think, for me in 9th, again, I didn't play much 9th, and I am an idiot. I felt like points on weapons was basically just either you pay the tax or you don't. Like, and if the tax isn't worth paying, then the unit's fine without them, and then that's just the price. But if the unit is only worth taking with the weapons, then that should just be the cost of the unit, right?
You get quite a few units that are, it would be nice if I also had this. Like, I'm fine with Battle Sisters having a heavy bolter most of the time, but if they can have a multi-melter for 10 points, 5 points for free, I think I'll take the multi-melter, usually.
Yeah, I think I would rather, and again, this is asking a lot, I would rather they make those choices more interesting than just make one cost more. Make it so that you have to actually really think about, do you want the heavy bolter or the multi-melter? Like, again, that's going to change. That's going to be a bigger change, and I think that's going to be one where the balance is a lot trickier, right? But you could have it so you go, there are situations, you want to be in a game where you go, I've got a multi-melter, damn, I wish I had a heavy bolter right now. And that kind of gives you that decision, you know what I mean?
Could be. If there's some berserkers really far away with their 2 wounds.
Yeah. But I'm thinking like you'd have to change the heavy bolter to make that.
Oh yeah, the stats should be better. I'd
rather they change the heavy bolter than change the price.
Yeah, the stats should be more reflective of an equal choice, but with different roles. Heavy flamer auto hits, great, that's a useful thing, but it doesn't have very much range compared to the heavy bolter, which has longer range, but random if it hits.
Make one of them heavy, so one of them is better if you don't move. So one is better for if you want to move that unit a lot more, one's better if you want to keep that unit still.
Which is, I suppose, how the heavy bolter, heavy flamer currently works.
Yeah, so, I mean, just make the melter heavy, so that you want to move for the melter, but it makes it worse if you do.
So the multi-melter is heavy, but the heavy bolter isn't heavy. That's an option. Heavy stubber isn't heavy.
You'd have to call it the weighty bolter and the heavy multi-melter.
No, we have heavy stubbers that are not heavy, so that's already there.
Yeah, maybe just get rid of the word heavy unless it's the keyword. Just call them like chunky. The chunky bolter, the chunky stubber.
Mm-hmm. The fat man bolter.
And this isn't just Games Workshop, really. This is kind of for a lot of things. I'd rather things move forward and try new things rather than just go and kind of lean on the old stuff, because I think it's not lazy, but I think you lose out on some really interesting design space. Because I think my big thing is like the Scourges is such an interesting design idea that I'd rather see more of that and more interesting things there. I feel it would be them just giving up and going, oh, we'll just put points back on weapons.
Like it was when they just threw away challenger cards. Oh, we can't be bothered to balance this well, so get rid of it.
Exactly. Like I'd rather, like I like that they tried the challenger cards, right?
I still like using the challenger cards,
and I still like it. I think it's just they need to do more of that. And look, don't get me wrong. If 11th edition comes around and they go, okay, we put points values back on weapon, I'll be like, fine. You know what?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably for the best. But
there's another thing. You say your thing. You say thing.
Yeah. If we're talking about like what we want for 11th edition, my big thing is I want things to move forward and I want them to use the lessons from 10th. You have Horus Heresy, right? I think a lot of people talk about rules that are in Horus Heresy.
Mm-hmm.
I want Scatter Dice back. Oh, I want, Facing Armor back. Oh, I want, the templates back for like Blast and stuff. Go play Horus Heresy. Like, let 40k evolve into its own thing. Let it, it might not be what you like, sure.
You could just play
I could definitely see that,
40K.
it may alienate some older players who like that stuff. But I feel like if you're just gonna fall back on the stuff that, the nostalgic stuff, you're not gonna get anywhere. That's why I think 10th edition did so well, because they really revamped the way that datasheets are.
Yeah.
And I think more of that, and being more,
trying to make actually big changes. Even though we know that 10th and 11th edition are probably very similar, they'll be making more changes. I mean, 40K's rules increment incredibly slowly anyway. But they could try a slightly bigger leap than we're expecting to change things up and maybe be better. And we can see a progression, because a lot of 40K stuff is rather old in terms of game design.
Yeah, if 11th edition ends up being kind of a weird, like, 10th and 9th hybrid because they brought some stuff back that people liked, I would be more disappointed than if it was just like, I want it to be 10 plus, 10th plus, I was not 10 plus. Minus. You know what I mean?
Rather than 9.8.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Something they might have learned for points. What if points for characters were unit upgrades? Like specific points for a unit? Because we know that characters can only attach to a unit. You stay with that unit the whole time. It's rare that people have like, oh, I've got 3 characters and they can go anywhere in my army. Oh, I wonder where I'll put them today. No, you already know. Palatine with this unit, Canoness with this unit. So if you had like the Canoness is 50 points for a unit of Battle Sisters, but for Sacrosanct was 65 points, how do you feel about that?
I think that's a way of doing it. I think there's more you can do with characters in that respect. I think having captain in Gravis armor, captain in Phobos armor, captain in Librarian armor, captain in Terminator armor, captain in your
Librarian
mum's dressing gown, captain in the streets, but chapter master in the sheets. You don't need all that. You could just have captain, and then plus points if you want to give them Gravis armor, and then. I know that obviously data sheets are very different, but like, I don't know, there's something around that which I think could just be neatened up. I do like the idea of saying, like, depending on the unit it attaches to is better, because there are some places where, like, this character will always attach to this unit because it's just the best.
Yeah.
So having granularity there is not too bad. Like, let's take the Librarians, for example. So the Librarian, like a Librarian in Phobos armor, a Librarian in regular armor, Librarian in Terminator armor, they have different rules, like different unit abilities.
Psychic powers and unit abilities, yeah.
Make those abilities something you pay for. So you could have any of the armor types, and then you just pick which of the essentially spells you want.
That's kind of what I was going to think of for psychic powers. What if there was a psychic power on your datasheet? I don't want the psychic phase back. I like it as units and abilities and as weapons. I'm fine with that. But you could have a unit ability that's a psychic power, and you can swap that out for one of 3 core discipline psychic powers.
Yes, 100%. I think that's where I also don't want the psychic phase back, and I don't know why people do, because the psychic phase, people always then go like, oh, what about the shooting phase for a War Eater's armor? It's essentially the same thing. It's like, well, not really, because at least with the old psychic phase, if you didn't have any psychers, one person was just there rolling dice and telling you you're dead.
Yeah.
With the shooting phase, you at least get to roll armor saves.
Stuff.
Again, I know I just spent like the past 10 minutes going, oh, 40k should be its own thing. But Age of Sigmar does it quite well. So that would be another good place to start injecting that kind of thing, especially if you make it unit, like we say, you pay for the unit, like, special rule, that's your spell. I also don't mind that psychic weapons are actually weapons you do in the shooting phase. That's just a nice way of cleaning it up. I do think the psychic keyword needs to do something more than just be something that has very rarely anti-psychic comes up. But if you have a psychic character and suddenly someone is,
anti-psychic,
you have a 4 up against psychic abilities, it's worse, right?
Yeah, it could mean something or have an actual impact on the game, which it doesn't really much now.
Like I said, I don't mind it just being like, this is just a shooting weapon or a melee weapon that just has the psychic keyword, because that just kind of cleans it up.
Yeah, we used to just do that as well. Like 3rd edition, you take a leadership test, then you can fire the gun. Just make it a gun. Yeah,
but there needs to be something more there. But no psychic phase back. Maybe a few more choices, maybe being able to choose what that weapon is, or, there's a few things you can do there.
Okay, do you want to do how they release rules, like digital stuff, or go for allies?
We can do the digital. I think the rule stuff's going to be quite quick, because I think we both agree.
Yeah, probably.
The app is good. Maybe you don't agree with that, but I think the app is really good, because it's easy to search through stuff. Like, it's quite nice to be able to flick onto your unit profiles. Just, you have...
Hang on, a little thing just popped up saying why I hate the app. Yeah, it's an awkward subscription service.
just make it so that if you subscribe to that, you get all of the Codex rules.
Absolutely. Then it's great for tournament players to just check anything. It's great for using allied detachments for your one detachment that has allies. Then you're using two codexes.
Yeah, it is mad. It's mad. That is the one thing I'm just like, GW, what is wrong with you?
That annoys me.
Make the codexes. You can keep the unit profiles in there, but make them more for the fluff. Put a load of stuff in there about like how to paint it, how to build it.
Yeah.
Start chucking in, how
why
to
you should start collecting the army. They used to have that. Just like in the front.
Chuck all that stuff back in there. Lots of nice pictures. Like, I like having codexes because it's just nice to look at the pictures. Like, that's why I buy D&D books. Like, I'm not looking at every single bloody monster profile. I just like the pictures.
Yeah.
More of that, and then go for whatever the price of, Games Workshop Plus is, you get all the rules on the app.
That would work. I think the app should also include Legends units, like the Age of Sigmar app does.
Yep.
I don't know what else.
They've made some strides in 10th edition to make the stuff, the PDFs and stuff they put online better. They finally did a thing where they cross out the old price, or they can tell you what the if they change points, they tell you how much it's changed by.
That has taken them 2 years to do.
It, like, in brackets it goes plus 15. Thank you, because it's so difficult to stream and be like, oh, let's go through this through the new MFM and go, okay, this has gone up in points. I don't know what it was before. That could be 1,000,000 points or 1.
Yeah.
They still need to do the actual data slate better, because it goes, change the wording to this. But if you don't know what the old wording is, that means nothing. Strike through is a thing that's existed on computers for God knows how long. Just use strike through. Also, and this is going to be something that I know the colorblind people are very very adamant
Stop
about.
using red and green.
And it's something I've made a mistake about before. Red and green. Don't use red and green for up and down.
No.
Use blue.
Orange and blue are pretty good. They're quite contrasting.
I mean, the arrows are nice as well, but yeah, red and green. I think the problem is, like, if you're not colorblind, and this is the mistake I made in a video, where it's like, oh, green good, red bad. On a traffic light, green is go and red is stop. But unlike a traffic light, which has an order in which they appear on the light, when you're using colors, if it's not obvious which one is the up and down, it does affect colorblind people. And that's a very, very... It's one of those things where I feel like it's such an easy accessibility win.
Yeah, basic accessibility for stuff.
The fact they haven't done it yet makes me think that it's not out of lack of desire. It's just one of those ones where, in a business where you have like very strict policies and what's the word, like
style formats, style guides.
Yeah, style formats and processes.
I am listening intently to this ticket process.
You have to like change the process to have any of this stuff change. You can't just be like, oh, I'll just change it from red to, or from green to blue. I'll just change it from green to blue, because you have to be like, no. There's someone whose job it is to check all the processes and be audited against those. I've been through this before. It's an absolute pain in the ass. In any case, the whole thing is, it's probably just a case of like, we want to do this thing, but that has to be like a ticket that goes to somewhere that someone then reviews, then it updates a process. That process needs a process committee. It's a whole thing, right? And I feel like maybe it's one of those ones where people go, was this even tested? Like, why didn't they change it? It's like, it's because there's a prioritized list of things, and if it's not like, feature critical, it goes down on that list. So it might be something they do a bulk change of. Like in 11th, they go, okay, in 11th, we're going to change that color from red to blue, but rather than do it like right now, we're just going to attack that on our little like lower priority things, because it's not currently breaking our business. Digital only rules, not digital only. It would be nice to still have physical rules, just because it's nice to read through, but digital first.
Yeah, I like having the real book, but digital option. Cheaper PDFs. You could have cheaper PDFs for just the rules.
Yep.
I know Games Workshop didn't like PDFs just being given out because it was easy to copy and share them, so they did like EPUBs for 6th edition, 7th edition. But cheaper PDFs could be useful.
Yeah.
Rather than just buying the book.
The fact that the core rules are there, like online, is great.
Yes, that is good.
Like, that's great forward step.
Basic Crusade stuff's there.
I'd say I am on the more positive side of my opinions of 40k and my opinions of Games Workshop. I'm not like, oh, praise be to Games Workshop, but I'm more positive about the game. Even I go, Games Workshop, for the love of God,
Come to the 21st century.
It feels. I do want to just talk to someone. Like, is there a reason you haven't? And is that reason either just because you are going to do it and you don't want to do it mid-edition, or is the reason that there's someone, some exec somewhere who just doesn't understand how apps works and is telling you to use AI instead because AI is the thing?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No.
But, I wouldn't be surprised because having come from a rather large tech company as my career before this, I wouldn't be surprised if the people at the top are just that Centurion dumb. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. You may need to bleep that out.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. Now you're tiny. Yeah. The current rules releases are also done badly sometimes. We had the wrong keywords on the Decius kill team in the app for ages. And now they actually have their own things, not just the Aquila ones. There's inconsistencies in weapons between the PDFs on Warhammer Community and on the app. The September balance patch got leaked on the app, but not online. The Geomancer rules were on the app, but not a PDF. That took like 2 more days. And then the faction packs initially released on the website were missing legend units until about 2 weeks later. And then the FAQs and the erratas in the faction packs contradict the balance patches. And the apps follow the balanced data slate. They need to have like one team doing both, I think.
Yeah, they need to consolidate somewhere. My guess, again, I don't know the inner workings, is someone somewhere said, we need the faction packs and we need them out now. And someone else said, we're not ready, we haven't done the Legends part of it yet. And someone went, I don't care, go press button. And that's how you get those inconsistencies. Or it is purely just people went, hey, we did it, we've done the patch packs, good job everyone. They post it and someone goes, hey, we've got a comment here saying where's the Legend stuff, and everyone looks in the meeting room and goes, oh yeah,
I seem to have published version 1.8, not version 1.9.
Whoopsie. I will say this, they're getting there. They have an app and the app is good.
The app is okay.
Like the app isn't absolutely terrible. I to be fair, I've never really had much of a problem with the app. I will say one of the problems with the app is search for rules is a bit annoying when you're trying to find a certain rule and you go, oh, it's got something to do with charging. And it gives you literally every possible rule that has the word charge in it. It's like, no, I don't care about this unit that can charge. I'm looking. And then you have to like work out if the title of the update in the, the FAQ, if that is the question you're looking for. And it's a bit of a pain. But at least it is there.
It is sort of there. And the rules commentary, I think, is also on there.
Yeah. It's just, it's a bit of a pain to kind of try and find your way through. But it's something, and it doesn't like blow your phone up when you try to use it. So,
And it's a version of it is free. But I have problems with price generally with 40K. The prices are too high. The models, they cost too much.
I mean, like, I think there's been a lot of research around this. Again, I'm not really an economist. But there's been a lot of research around the fact that like a lot of them are kind of with inflation. A lot of them are not, right? Like characters, the single characters are. Oh yeah,
£25 compared to the £6 that they probably should be. But that's because they do them in plastic and they have a whole sprue for them, whereas most other companies will have special characters in metal or resin.
Yeah, my problem with discussing the kind of price of Games Workshop is the fact that the business is just growing. So clearly they're doing something right and the game is just getting bigger. And I know some people are saying that they are priced out of the hobby, but clearly they are being replaced by enough people who are not. And that, I think, is not going to change the pricing at all. I think everyone would agree that it would be nice if it was cheaper.
Yeah.
But realistically, it is a publicly traded company, and trying to get them to make the price go down, they're going to look at that and just go, yes, customer satisfaction may go up, but our bottom line goes down.
Well, I don't care. I don't think we should get it in our heads that high prices are reasonable because of something, but minor rules discrepancies are not. Both can be fixi.
If you thought this story was based, you're right.
I think it's okay.
I'm not saying like it shouldn't be
better.
Fixed. I would just not hold out hope. Like again, it's one of those things where it's like it sucks to see it go up like every year, right? And but I think one of the biggest issues is my Warhammer's gone up 4%, but my grocery bill has gone up like 20. Like this is a big problem. Is the fact that it would be more people would probably be fine. Well, not fine with it. People would probably be more, okay with it if not everything was going up. And I think that's the big problem, is the fact that like this is their one hobby, the one thing that they can enjoy doing, the one thing that they can use to get out of like the to do a nice hobby. While everything else is falling apart, at least they've got this. But then if that's pricing them out, then that I think there's just a massive anxiety about that. And I think there is something that needs to be done somewhere. But I also think that like eating the rich is a pretty good way of doing it, I suppose.
The Tyranids would approve.
But I think it's just like my energy can only go so far, right? In terms of like where I put my effort into going, this needs to change, and put that effort into trying to get GW to lower prices when it clearly isn't going to happen, because that's just not how capitalism works. If you want to change the price of GW, you kind of need to change capitalism, realistically. Yeah. Which, I mean, hey, that's a way to put your effort into it.
We could do that. We have the time.
It's like, again, it sucks. And I don't want to come off as just like, Paul protects big business or whatever, but...
Paul has money, Paul doesn't care.
You have to look at stuff like pricing really, really objectively. They sell it for this much. If they lost money selling it for that much, they would change the price. That is the unfortunate thing, right? And again, I'm not saying like Games Workshop are absolutely fine selling at this price. They're not. It's expensive. But then unless enough people vote with their wallet, it won't change. And I think the big problem is that 40K has had such a massive explosion. To put it bluntly, like they raised the prices around with inflation. I'm sure they could probably do something worse. But again, I'm not trying. It sounds like I'm defending Games Workshop, and I kind of am. But it's also not really defending Games Workshop. More just defending the fact that as a business, it's a pure numbers game. The only customer satisfaction they care about is the number of customers and the number of things they're selling. And if that number goes down, then there's a problem. But if that number goes up or maintains, then they're laughing all the way to the bank, right? And
there's a lot of laughter coming from Nottingham.
Yes. I mean, what would be a way to make Games Workshop games a lot cheaper? Maybe, putting the manufacturing in a cheaper location. But it's a big business and it's quite nice for us Brits to have something that's, UK made. Again, one other problem whenever I have this conversation is I have to remember, as people from the UK, we have the cheapest Warhammer.
Yeah.
As soon as you go anywhere else in the world, the pricing becomes
expensive in Australia.
Like, I'm sorry, Australia. I really am, but your prices are horrible. Or America, or anywhere in Europe, like your prices are worse just because,
we think they're bad in the UK.
Yeah, like in the UK, it's expensive, but it's not the worst in the world. Like there are a lot of more expensive hobbies, but as soon as you start to export that, that's when it becomes horrible. And then there's a whole other thing about exports and tariffs and whatever, but we don't need to talk about that. But there's a lot of things there where it's hard to really understand the price of it when we get it the cheapest. And this is going to be kind of the Paul is a bit of an arsehole. I can afford it. That's the thing. Like it's not to a point where I've gone, God, that's expensive, because it's kind of like it's a luxury product. And I know that's not, because it's a hobby that we want more people to get into, and more people are getting into it despite the price, which is why it's so bad. Like
it's weird.
I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah. Is now a good time for a sponsored segment to explain how we get money?
Speaking of money and capitalism,
you can buy a magnetic case from Tabletop Stronghold. Use it as a display case or use it as a carry case. Magnetize your models and keep them secured to the tray to stop your fragile pieces from moving around and getting broken during transportation. Do not eat the magnets.
So go to tabletopstronghold.com right now using code
PON25
or Paul25. Basically, choose your favorite.
Like, ooh.
Now, basically, go buy a mag case with one of our codes, and then tell us which one you picked, and whoever gets the most doesn't get put into the pits of Hades. And thank you again, Tabletop Stronghold, for sponsoring. Go to tabletopstronghold.com right now to get yourself a Mag Case 2.0 Terrain MDF. Go now, please. Thank you.
So we're meant to be in an alliance, Paul, rather than competing against each other. In 40k, you can also have allies. There we go. That's the segue I'm going with.
Perfect.
Is it okay that it's done inconsistently for each faction? Is it confusing to have the Deathwatch Decius kill team that is Adeptus Astartes and cannot be allied, but the near-identical Agents Aquila kill team can be allied? And the Adeptus Sororitas Battle Sister Squad is different in stats and rules to the Agents Sisters of Battle Squad. And it took a long time for the Cherub split keyword rule with the immolator to be added to that sister squad. I think it's been added. It might not have been added. The Eldar Codex has some Dark Eldar units, but they're specifically copied over into their codex with the keyword Ynnari.
Yes.
Or you've got Harlequins, which can be allied into Dark Eldar up to 25%.
Or more if you use a specific detachment.
Yeah. And other factions then have, like, the World Eaters can have Corn Demons up to 50%, but only in one detachment. Otherwise, no demons allowed in any other detachment. And the ones they can take are specified, I think. Whereas Chaos Space Marines can have 25% of demons in any detachment. Should there even be consistency? Does it matter, or is this a perfectly fine way to do allies?
Allies are confusing. I think the way they've designed the game, right, is you've got an army, which gives you an army rule, then you have a detachment, gives you a detachment rule, then the allies don't get really any access to that.
Yeah. Mostly. Depends on the detachment rule.
Yeah. I feel like all allies really do is if there's a really weird skew thing you can do with them, they'll get used. Otherwise, they're there for flavor and fluff.
Mm-hmm.
And
good.
That's good. I like that. I think there was a period of time where, like, Canis Rex was being used as an ally for basically everything that could possibly have it.
That was like 4 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Allies really should be there either for a specific gimmick, like Reaper's Wager or Ynnari, the demon stuff.
Bloodbald.
Or it should just be there for fluff. It should be there because I just want to take a Lancer with the Screaming Ravens. Will it be good? Probably not, but it'd be funny. And I think that requires it to be kind of done ad hoc rather than consistently, which is annoying. The agent stuff where it's like the agents versions can be allied, but not the one from the main book, that is very much just a minefield that I don't get. So yeah, that I think definitely should be cleaned up a bit more.
Well, agents just needs help because it seems unclear whether they are, like the Index, just a collection of units that get sent out, or if they're meant to be an army in themselves. And they don't work great as an army.
I've actually got a really easy way to help agents here.
Take it with Control-Alt-Delete?
And throw it in a fire. And then you don't have any worries about it.
Sometimes it's fun to play an inquisitorial strike force.
It is. I think it's just a case of, like, maybe you just have a very simple keyword system where you go, it has the allies keyword. If you have the same faction, like Imperium, you can take up to 3 allies keyword things or something, I don't know, something like that. So you can have just Battle Sisters are an allies thing, so you could take them in any Imperium.
Right. Yeah, I could see that. So in the Battle Sisters Codex, Adeptus Sororitas Codex, the Battle Sister Squad has the allies keyword. Yeah.
And then in Agents, you just go, you can take more than 1 allies Battle Sisters.
Okay.
Something like that. It's not fully formed in my mind, but that kind of system where you have that way you don't have the problem of going, oh, any Imperium can ally with any other Imperium, and someone going, oh, that means I can take this weird, like, specific unit in this army, and it actually kind of...
You didn't play in 8th edition, did you?
No, I'd not.
That's where you have a knight, 2 Space Marine captains, a squad of Space Marine scouts, maybe, an Imperial Guard platoon, and it's a Battle Sisters army.
Yeah, like, that is wild. Maybe one of those things where you have that kind of, ability to do, and then you get to the tournament campaign and it just goes, allies are not allowed. Yeah. That way you still have all the fun fluff, but it doesn't affect tournament way. I think that I think is probably the way that to kind of make it so that you're kind of balancing around a very much more constrained thing, but still allow the wild stuff to happen that people want. So I think that's the problem, is that line is blurred a lot right now, where people are kind of wanting to use the tournament companion and those ruins and all the terrain and all that stuff
all of the time.
But then sometimes people want to play with legends, where realistically you just go, just have it so you properly separate them out. You can even do it detachment wise, which is something I've talked about, where you go, we want to try this weird detachment where everything gets set on fire if you roll a 6. And then the tournament companion goes, you can't use the everything gets set on fire if you roll a 6 detachment. That's just for the fun stuff. that way you can kind of make sure you're really keeping those things fully separate. And so when you do a pickup game, you can very much be like, are we using these strict rules, or are we going hog wild? You know,
are we playing evil, or are we playing fun?
Are we playing fun, or are we playing strict?
Is this under exam conditions or not?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that I'd be really interested in knowing, because I think the one problem I have is kind of understanding how much this stuff is used overall. Like, how often are allies that much of a problem? Or is it just that when allies are a problem, it's kind of that problem is, you know, megaphone and just like amplified across because everyone's talking about it, despite the fact it's happened like once. You know, it's one of those things where I think it's just one of those consequences where anytime any kind of skew thing happens, it's so easy to spread that skew thing around that it starts to permeate the entire community.
Because the internet exists.
Exactly. That's why maybe having that very, very strict tournament side of things to disallow that kind of stuff means that you could find those things, but they're not going to affect the thing that I think causes those things to cause problems and explode in casual games. Because, you know,
like in Legend stuff, you've got like very minor extra bonuses. The Contemptor Dreadnought is rather cheap for what it does. There's the Orc Mech Dread that can heal itself. That's fun. That's not super broken, but that doesn't get spread everywhere because it's Legends.
Yeah. I mean, look at the Drukhari stuff they sent to Legends. They sent all that Drukhari stuff to Legends, and you look at the rules and go, my God, this is cool.
Yeah.
Like, they clearly had them ready, and then they went, oh, wait, we want to send those to Legends. So it's like, it was almost like they're going, if we bring this stuff back, you know we can write good rules for them. Like, I think that is going to be...
It's still there. It's free rules in the faction pack.
Exactly. I think that is definitely a place where I think, you know, ally systems and stuff we talked about, like, you know, the weird rules and that kind of stuff. It's once it affects tournament play, and then and then it gets spread around there, and then people net list and then take that to a casual game. That's the pipeline of the problem, right? Where if you have those things that just don't get into the pipeline, then you can still have all that fun stuff, and then it just needs to be a case of a shift in the way that things are presented, where people bring that stuff up more. You know, I think,
yeah.
I think, ally system. Do you want consistency? Probably. Will you get it? Probably not, because it's weird and whatever. And you know, as long as I can at some point take a Lancer and Screamer Ravens, it's fine. Again, this is definitely something I think you are more kind of, you have probably more authority and more opinion on, because I don't really use allies or have an army with allies, right?
Important to allow allies, because if you play Genestealer Cult and you've been playing for a while, then you'll have picked up some Imperial Guard units because they were part of the Genestealer Cult army and the Codex for a very long time. And also Tyrannid units in 8th and 9th edition. They were your only ally. You could take them. And then if you're not allowing them, that's like, oh, I will take this part of my collection and put it aside for when I'm playing the one not great Brood Brothers detachment. I think Games Workshop just didn't look like us having amazing Genestealer Cult stuff plus tanks. Like, oh, there's a weakness in the army that's easily fixed.
Here's one of those things where I can kind of see, let's say I was a Genestealer Cults player and I was like, oh boy, I want to play Genestealer Cults. What's good? Oh, I need to buy a bunch of guard stuff. So I can kind of see where they're coming from in terms of like, an army's an army and allies are a nicety that's fun to do, but not really like optimal. But also, it should still be a thing that people can do because it is fun.
I think it should be allowed even if it's not optimal.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think there's a lot to be said where things that are not optimal should still be allowed to be done because it's fun. And the main thing I think is that when stuff is too optimal and weird, it goes through that problem pipeline. That's where it becomes an issue. So as long as you could just block that pipeline, you could do whatever you want. Ally anything with anything, not a problem. Just make it so that the kind of competitive side doesn't have to deal with it. Because that's when people will find weird loopholes and stuff and cause problems, and that becomes a nightmare to balance, where if you just block it, like with Legends, you just block it at the door, and you don't have to really worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then people who want to play the competitive side are like, fine, we'll play fun competitive stuff without having to worry about this stuff. People who want to play for fun and do really cool narrative stuff can have, you know, Sisters and Guard and Space Marines all in one army and, you know, have a wild, fun time.
How do you feel about the way Age of Sigmar and I think Warhammer Old World does it with Regiments of Renown? Like a very specific grouping of units that can go with another faction. Like, oh, you've got Hearthband, Hearthkin, like a combat patrol that can be added on to another faction as an ally.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun. I think that would be a great way, again.
That's a good way of using combat patrol, I think.
But it's a great way of combining stuff. I like that idea. And it's, again, I think that's something that people could have a lot of fun with. A system where you can kind of build your own, like, regiment of renown, which you can then, like, that'd be a lot of fun, actually. Having, like, a, this is a very much kind of pie in the sky idea. Having a database of people's, like, homebrew regiments of renown that you can add to your own army.
Yeah, I mean, Age of Sigmar has, like, the Anvil of Apotheosis, where you build your own character.
Yeah, like having stuff like that would be great. Like I could make like, hey, if you want to play a fun game and use the Screaming Ravens Regiment of Renown, ally, it's 1,000,000 Centurions. But like having that kind of thing would be really fun, and a fun community thing as well, right? Like, you know, you could have, I want to use the Christian von Carmian Gene Stealer bomb in my little army here for a fun game, or you know, the Paul is bad at stuff, Screaming Ravens, just add 3 Centurions to whatever the hell you want because it's funny, Regiment of Renown. Like, you'd have to have some sort of restriction to it, like, but that would be a fun and interesting thing to do, and I wouldn't mind it.
I don't know, there was there's quite a few rules actually that they're meant to be casual rules, but they also get used competitively, or the competitive rules are casual. Objective markers, you're not meant to stand on them, but in the tournament you can. So everyone does because it's so much easier. Yes. And victory points might want to be a bit different. I mean, they mostly are a bit different. The 10 points for painting. You hate the 10 points for painting.
I get it for tournaments because that is I think it is one of the things that is at least somewhat of a barrier to entry to stop people from just either 3D printing or just grabbing a bunch of unpainted models and just playing like the most meta thing. You actually have to put some painting effort. It might be minimum, but you actually have to put some time into having something to get those 10 points. I don't mind that.
But should it be for victory points?
Any other game should not be 10 points for painting, because this is one of my biggest hang-ups, and someone in a comment like summed this up for me the other day really, really well. You don't stop someone painting a unit if they haven't played a game. You don't go, whoa, you can't paint that unit of Terminators, you need to play a game first. But you do go, you can't play a game until you've painted. Yeah. You don't go, you're not allowed to read that. You can't watch that lore video. You haven't played a game yet. Playing a game, like some people play with cardboard cutouts or just like little, standees of their models.
Those
some
are perfectly reasonable.
Made out of Coke bottles. Like, you shouldn't be blocking just trying the game and starting the game and playing a pickup game of a casual game. And I know some people go, but the spectacle of looking at painted models. Like, yeah, fine. If that's your prerogative, then you can enforce that yourself. But that shouldn't be something that is enforced via the rules until you get to that tournament level where it becomes a thing that just stops you from constantly like swapping things out really, really quickly.
Well, that was where I thought it shouldn't even be at tournaments. Like, scrap it entirely. Because tournaments having like their tournament companion, we require a painted army. That's in there anyway. Having a victory point barrier stops everyday players with new models wanting to play normal games. So get rid of it even in tournaments. It's not necessary.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, yeah. I agree with you there. I think it was more for me just like if it was a kind of thing which Games Workshop were in their tournament companion. I think the tournament companion should just be like, you should have a rule that says, make sure that your stuff is painted, otherwise people do this.
It's advice. Yeah, I mean, tournament advice is what the companion could be.
Someone's like, I want to try out playing 40k. Mm-hmm. You're not going to say, you can't do it until you've painted everything. Like, I feel
you can play with your painted. However, you will lose 10 points compared to me immediately.
Yeah, but it's nonsense, right? Like, I understand the concept. This is going to sound unfair. I think it probably is unfair. But it's like, if you require the visuals to get into the game more, then
imagine it.
A game can be cinematic and have fun things happen, whether the army is painted or not. It really is as simple as that. Like the game, I don't really know how to phrase this without sounding like an arsehole. I think it is probably an arsehole opinion, but it's like if you're blocking someone from playing the game because they haven't painted their models, then you've just lost out on playing a game. Did you want to play the game or not? It should be less gatekeeping in that regard, is my opinion. I understand the point of it is to stop people from just like suddenly like cycling through a bunch of stuff and like really just rapidly going through and finding the most easy net list, 3D printing it, and then going to a tournament. Like, again, that's what the tournament companions for most tournaments have. It's like, it must be painted.
Yeah.
But I think that is a much less, common occurrence than someone going, hey, I want to play the game. I don't have much time to paint, but I still do kind of play a fairly, standard 2,000 point game with the models I have. Shall we do it? Because I see comments that are stuff like, oh, it's so easy to just like spray paint something just to get like a base coat in. Like, there's no excuse. It's like, well, there is an excuse. The excuse is,
it takes a couple of hours to base coat something.
People don't want to and shouldn't be forced to. Like, some people just don't have the time, energy, like
the money to pay someone else to paint it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where just like it's. I know it's not much effort, but it's even less effort to not do it. So if you want to play a game against painted minis because that's the game you like, absolutely not a problem, fine. Like, as long as you're upfront about it, that's whatever. But I think that people shouldn't be worried about losing out on not painting their models if they just want to play a game. And I think people just need to be a bit more open for that kind of stuff, especially with a lot of new players coming in.
Yeah, which are we going to get in 11th edition? More new players.
Exactly, right? Especially with, I think another thing is really how like popular Space Marine 2 has been. That seems to have brought a lot of people into the system as well. So like, I think the game is just going to get bigger and bigger. And I think 11th edition is going to be marketed very much as like, oh, you play Space Marine 2, huh? And you haven't really understood how to get involved? 11th edition, get involved. And that's, I think it's going to be a massive, massive explosion. I think as a community, I think we do a pretty good job of not being that gatekeeper. Obviously, you still have the people out here and there, but that's on the internet. I feel like at tournaments, these are the ones I've been to, like the kind of way we want to play, that kind of, very conversational, cooperative, that is becoming the thing that is more accepted. And I think as a community, we are doing a good job of inviting new players in. I've played against some of the best players in the world.
And I've crushed new players because they thought they were tournament players.
Exactly. And like, I felt like even though it was a massive mismatch in terms of like, skill, that it was inviting. I learned a lot, had a great time. Like that is the kind of thing that I think we should be encouraging. Having this community and going, but you can't enter the door unless you've painted, is a bit bad.
It is a different skill set as well. I know some people can be not good at painting or not like painting. It takes a long time to learn to do well enough.
Yeah.
But there's other points things. We can just change other points things.
Yeah,
we can actually.
There's other ways.
We can actually modify the game like what you should take as a style of army list. Because Games Workshop didn't really like the jail list that started becoming more common. The Wolf Jail, the Gene Stealer Jail, where you block your opponent in their deployment zone. They can't really score in turn 1 or turn 2, maybe turn 3, and then you win. It's not super fun to face. And a lot of the catch-up mechanics they've had were based on, if you are striking second, then you can catch up and you can just kill the enemy. Like some Gene Stealer called Host of Ascension lists. So they have messed with points already. We could do other messing with points things. One comment we got from the last video, should secondary missions be secret? Because they are in Spearhead.
I think because of the way they're designed, because most of them now go off at the end of your turn, there's not much purpose in keeping them secret.
It's a little bit of tactical shenanigans. Maybe I want you to think I have established locus, and you're going to reactive move there.
It's more knowing what the opponent doesn't have in their pool, right? Like, if you go, okay, my opponent has like all of the, kill secondaries. They've done all the action ones, so I need to be careful about that. That would require, I think, a changing the way you do the secondaries, but it would be interesting. Like stuff like
Marks for Death and Tempting Target
would be an interesting
awkward.
one to be secret. And rather than it being your opponent chooses it, you roll to see which one becomes the tempting. And like there's 3 in No Man's Land, you roll a D3, and that's your tempting target.
But
and you basically say, I have a tempting target, but I'm not going to tell you which one. And then
card.
You can start to kind of like second guess them. I go, I'm going to put all my stuff on this one. They go, that's your tempting target. I'm going to move over there. And you go, actually, it was this one over here.
So you'd have to roll, like, so you get your cards in preparation for the enemy turn, maybe?
Yeah.
It probably won't happen. And actions get difficult because you declare them in the shooting phase. You say halfway through, by the way, I have this mission that I'm doing. And I find it easy to ignore people's mind games, so it wouldn't matter too much for me.
There's stuff you can do around the missions. I do like the way they update some of the missions, like stuff like Mark for Death, very good update, where you go... Because Mark for Death is usually just like, here's 3 untargetable things, that's a dead draw. Now it's at least, look, you can go, you have a dude over there, I can at least get 2 points.
Yeah, I like this mission deck.
Again, more stuff like that where you're kind of adjusting the mission deck. I think out of all the things in 10th edition, I think the mission deck is pretty good. So
it's a shame if they want to change that in March. Oh, we
different
should
but not.
complain about the mission deck. There's not enough mission deck things printed. They could put them as a downloadable PDF on their Warhammer community. They could put them in White Dwarf.
They could
They
do
really
a wild
could.
thing. They could put it in the app and have an app where you
My
press a button and
God.
it draws it for you, like an app already does that.
Like the apps that already are around that you can do that with. Yeah.
Yeah, if you wanted a tabletop battle, let's say, or maybe you wanted multiple tabletop battles, there's an app where you can press a button and it does the draw for you. Put that in your app, and then you've got that. You don't have to worry about if your cards sell out.
Yeah, because it's the main way to play, and it's versatile, and tournament people use it, and casual people use it. It's a good system.
It's a good system.
If
it's a great system.
Was available. I also thought, do we want to do more things with Battle Line? Because Pariah Nexus had Battle Line bonuses. This mission deck doesn't, apart from if you're playing 1,000 points. So we could do something from Horus Heresy. Battle Line units, when they do the primary mission, you get 1 extra victory point. That's a Horus Heresy thing.
Yeah, Battle Line is an interesting one, right? Because what I think, this is something that people talk about with forced organization charts, which I don't really like, because I like the idea of, if you want to do a weird 36 Centurion list, you can.
Honestly, Paul, there have always been ways to do the weird lists. You want all of your bikes to be
you pay for
troops.
the detachment type
commander for it.
is only elites or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Encouraging Battle Line, I think, is always going to be useful. And I think maybe just having it so like stuff like Battle Line can always advance an action or something. Like, even I know that's the 1,000 point thing, but just having a way for Battle Line to be more encouraged is good for the health of the game.
Yeah, and it looks
I think
like
the problem is that comes
army.
in is where if the Battle Line bonuses are too good, then armies that just have very good Battle Line, like Thousand Suns, for example, Rubric Marines are fantastic.
Gene
If you just have fantastic Rubric Marines and you're just buffing them more, that's going to more affect those, right? So it's a weird back and forth, right?
There was an idea. Oh, you could do. I mean, Horus Heresy has like this one special keyword that is this unit gets you 1 more victory point than normal.
Yeah, that I think a lot more things with like keywords. I know that I don't really know how the Age of Sigmar one works, but like each year's rules pack, you get like you can assign one of your units as the weird new rule, and that does stuff. So like,
oh yeah.
Like, I feel like the Giririan or whatever, like where it's like, there was one
Monster
I think
Hunters. Yes, this is a Monster Hunter unit or not.
Yeah, there's like one for second edition. It's like, if you have this bonus, then you get like +1 damage, but then also anyone else with it is easy to kill your version of it, and it's like there's a whole thing there. So you could do. I definitely think you could do stuff with that. So it's like you pick a Battle Line unit, they become like your recon unit, and they get extra points if they do actions or they get sticky or blah 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 blah. Like there's and then you have to like really play around that unit. That's cool. I like that. I think definitely more stuff with that.
Yeah, good. There's quite a few things, actually talking through all of the things that should change for 11th edition. There's quite a lot of things we like about 10th edition.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't know if we should end on some praise.
I've only played 9th and 10th. I think 10th is great, to be honest.
I think 10th is better than 9th.
I think a lot of people, because I see stuff like, 7th was great, 5th was great, 3rd was great. Problem is I don't really have the context there, and I don't know how much of it is rose-tinted glasses or not, right? Where
Depends how far back
I always
you go.
preferred the older thing. Like
3rd edition had
this is
some
why I kind of wanted to
problems.
move forward, because I worry that if enough people wearing enough rose-tinted glasses talk about something, that it will kind of cloud them in terms of like looking at the new stuff. So I think that's why I kind of always like things being pushed forward, even if it isn't the best thing in the world. Like new things are more interesting, and it's better to try something new and fail than to stagnate.
Yeah. I mean, this time round, I think for the first edition, in 10th edition, characters have been done right. They are in a unit. They're not dropping in and out, and they're not able to like have an infantry character join bikes as you sometimes could. But the unit gives something to the character gives something to the unit. The Patriarch can advance and charge with the Gene Stealers, and the Gene Stealers get devastating wounds. The Palatine can reroll hit rolls of 1 with the Novitiates. The Novitiates get lethal hits. And it's not auras that encourage castles and charges that are fragmented, where the character charges in and the unit doesn't, and they just go, ooh, as their leader gets shanked.
Yes.
So characters have been done well.
One thing I do think that they should change for 11th edition, because Battle Shock at the moment is...
It's okay. I'm okay with Battle Shock.
It's okay. Someone had the idea of making it so Battle Shock means that it turns off your detachment rule for that unit.
Ooh, detachment rule.
So that makes Battleshock a lot more impactful. Because it basically means, like, for example...
Bring as a flame, you can't advance and shoot.
Or maybe it even turns off your army rule. Like, for example, like, oh, this is Battleshocked. They aren't listening to your Oath of Moment target anymore because they're too messed in the
So it
head.
could turn off the army rule as well?
That would really drive the Battleshock system home, where it basically becomes like, if you're Battleshocked, you are just a dude that walks and shoots, but that's it, because you're really messed with. Rather than being just like, you have OC0 and
or generate
can't use strats.
Yeah, I can see that. I could see that.
Yeah, and then you have, on top of that, that means you can have more things, like one of the Dark Angels ones, the Unforgiven, where it's like, if they get Battleshock, they only go down to 1 OC rather than 0.
Yeah.
You could have more things in attachments or like stratagems where it's like, if you're Battleshocked, you can still use Oath of Moment and stuff like that. That would actually give a bit more variance there. I think that's one of the best ideas that I've seen for Battleshock.
Yeah,
I would like to see in 11th.
And people are not so cavalier about it. I'll just roll it and see what happens. You got that in our game. I'll just roll the Battleshock test and see what happens. Not think about using it. That one stratagem that stops the Battleshock, but only in the command phase.
Yeah, Insane Bravery, yeah. The fact that Insane Bravery was one that they had to make it so it was like once per game and they had to do it before the roll because it was so...
It was,
that would make Insane Bravery so much more impactful if it's like, oh, this unit here... Because then you, rather than being like, okay, I need this unit to score solid Insane Bravery them, but it could be, it's like, oh, this unit I need to shoot something, and without Oath of Moment, it's not going to do it. So now I have a choice. Do I want the score or do I want the killing?
Yeah, Or you just risk the dice and not do any rerolls on it, because that's impactful if there's no rerolls on the leadership, and you can't use command reroll on a leadership test.
Mm-hmm.
The stratagems are good.
I constantly fail bloody Battleshocks.
You have what? More opinions on Battleshock?
No, I fail Battleshocks all the time.
Oh, yes.
A disproportionate amount of things that roll under 6 for some reason. That, I think, is one of the better rules I'd like to see for 11th.
Yeah. The stratagems, the way stratagems are done in 10th edition are very good and comfortable. There's something to do on your opponent's turn, more interactions than just rolling saves. There's not too many command points. There's not 100 stratagems to choose from, like in 9th edition. You have about 12. I'm accepting of command points now, whereas I didn't like them in 8th edition and didn't like them in 9th edition. They were a weird add-on resource management game. I still think Overwatch should go back to the 2nd edition version, where you set Overwatch in your turn, and then start Overwatch. It's like Boarding Actions does it. Instead of shooting, you set Overwatch, and then the enemy can get shot. And then it doesn't take a command point to do it. Yeah,
that's really... Overwatch is definitely one of the weirder ones, right? Where it doesn't feel as impactful until it really does. Like, I think rerolls make Overwatch a lot harder to kind of deal with, right? And lethal hits and stuff. Because when you're going like, oh, I only hit on 6s, but those 6s are sustained and lethal, suddenly you're really worrying about that, especially if you can then reroll the hits and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like maybe an Overwatch change would be quite good. Would be basically just like, you cannot reroll Overwatch. Like, you hit on 6s, you can't reroll it.
Well,
that at least kind of flattens things out.
Or my 2nd edition version, which has, say, -1 to hit when you fire Overwatch, which I think it did at the time.
Yeah. I mean, Overwatch right now is 6s anyway, right? So...
Yeah, but if it was like set Overwatch for the coming turn instead of shooting this turn, it's like a preparation thing.
Yeah, that's like like the D&D concept of like holding your action, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I hold my action to shoot at this way if something comes around this wall.
If jail lists are not fun, perhaps the person going second could set a certain number of units to Overwatch or be hidden. Then if you're going to go right in front of my army and try and move block me, you're going to get shot first by a lot of things rather than just one.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff around that, I think, which is quite interesting. I think, you can... I think 10th edition has enough levers and things that they can pull and change without changing the game too dramatically, but there's enough stuff there to really kind of make something interesting without totally overhauling it. Because that's I don't want them to totally overhaul it, and I don't want them to just go backwards. But I think, realistically, 10th was such a big overhaul that I think 11th is going to be there. Let's tighten this up a little bit.
Yeah, slight improvements this time, rather than trying to make big leaps and bounds. I think that's okay. Not that like 40k doesn't change massively, but I think it'll be fine. We'll have to see what they do for 11th edition. They'll probably have a chaotic launch, and the rules won't quite make sense, and we'll have to fix things for them in the first 6 months. Eldar will be overpowered, and then it'll be a normal and fun to play game.
AdMech will be terrible, and then suddenly they'll be amazing. Well, actually, they'll always have been quite good, but then someone pushes it over the... It'll be a standard release, I think, and I am looking forward to it. It's going to be good, and I think new thing's fun. I like new thing. and it'll be
New things
interesting to see where it goes.
I think that's all we got to say.
That's about it. Yeah, I don't think I've got anything else. I thought I did, but then if I did, I forgot about it. So good job, me.
And if we want to make people choose between us, not that we're getting divorced, I assume we'll be back next month for another bloodbald episode. But here's a video from me about 11th edition, and here's a video from Paul about 11th edition. Have a great day of 40k.